We've had quite a few Range Rovers come through the dealership in the past, but never one quite like this. You see, the previous owner spent thousands modding and maintaining this thing. So let's see if it's any good, shall we? My name's Tom, and you're watching Paragon Cars. Let's go. Now then, the engine. Usually this diesel would be putting out just over 300 horsepower, but this one's been mapped, so now it makes 330 horsepower and 754 Newton meters of torque. Quite a conservative gain, but hopefully it should make a difference. The other fully stock Range Rover we reviewed did 6.89 seconds on the 30 to 70 sprint, so let's see if their extra 24 horsepower can make a difference. Oh, look at that! A small bump in power made quite the difference indeed. Half a second may not seem like a lot, but that means it's actually hitting 70 miles an hour 50 feet sooner than without the map. That can mean the difference between making it to a gap and not, so it's well worth doing in my opinion. Inside is where this Range Rover is actually fairly unique. The first thing you'll notice is the Alcantara steering wheel. It makes what is already a good wheel even better, as not only does it look good, it's grippier and just generally nicer to hold. The next thing you'll notice is the facelift climate controls. Being a 2016 car, this would usually have no touchscreen below the sat-nav, but the previous owner wanted the latest tech without paying the hefty price tag. You can find this system online for around £350, and whilst it's not identical, it actually works just as fast as the OEM system. The rest of the interior is typical Range Rover. Fields of dead cow mixed with soft touch materials make it a cracking car to spend time in. The rear doesn't fall short either. There's plenty of room for anyone even over 6 feet. Then you have an armrest and your own climate. The only negative back here is that the cup holders in the armrest can't be covered up, so your elbow can end up slipping into them. Minor annoyance, but one you shouldn't have in a luxury car. The boot is a nice square shape and also easy to get to thanks to the low riding air suspension. There's plenty of room for the weekly shop, but if you do need more room, you can fold the seats down to make a flat load floor. Then fitting fridges and TVs is a breeze. Okay, let's go for a drive and see what this torque monster can do. Oh, it's nice to be back in a Range Rover. These things do just have a really nice feeling to them when you drive them. They feel so substantial and meaty behind the wheel. This particular one especially, this wheel really suits the car. Actually makes the steering easier because you've just got more grip everywhere you touch it. Even this carbon fibre effect is really grippy. Apologies if the air conditioning is a bit loud. I do need it today because it is very hot. Anyway, car. Accelerator and brake have a really nice feel to them. The car does exactly what you want it to do. Even this mapped one responds exactly how you want it to. Got nice light steering, very quiet inside. This particular one has double glazing. It's a very relaxing car to drive, even though it is big. Even parking this thing, you'd think it would be difficult, but because it's got square corners, it's actually pretty easy to place this thing. And you've got a fairly good reverse camera with lines telling you where you're going to go, accurate parking sensors. So yeah, it's a doddle really. And because you sit really high up, you just get a really good view of everything that's around you. This high seating position really comes into its own as well when you need to see over hedges at junctions. Right, coming out of junctions, half throttle. you do notice a little bit more low down grunt. Still very smooth though, which is nice. Right, let's reset our trip. Let's see what MPG we manage on the motorway. According to Jaguar Land Rover, this thing will do 40 miles per gallon on the motorway. I think they're talking absolute nonsense, but hopefully I can be proven wrong. Right, before we get on the motorway, let's have a quick taste of handling. So, go into dynamic mode with the gearbox in its sport setting. We should lower slightly. Steering gets a little bit heavier. The car seems more responsive. Let's see what it's like out of this corner. Oh, it picks up pretty well. Range Rovers actually handle okay for big cars, I find. Like if you've seen the SVR video we did, you'll have seen that they can go sideways as well. I'll put a link up in the top right hand corner for you guys to check that out now if you want to. Anyway, let's go back into normal and see what kind of MPG we can get out of this thing. On the motorway then, this is where the Range Rover really is in its element. As good as this thing is off-road, on the road doing long distances, yeah, it's just wonderful. You've got no road noise, no wind noise, a super relaxing cabin to be in, a seat that adjusts every which way you need it to, and yeah, it's just a really nice car to do long distances in. Even the visibility is pretty good as well. You've got thin A-pillars, big flat windows so you can see pretty much everything around you quite easily, and these really big wing mirrors that give you a huge field of view in your blind spot. It's a surprisingly easy SUV to live with. And for the motorway, this engine's actually really good. It's got loads of low down grunt. That torque figure only stays for about 250 RPM, but you're pretty much always in that torque band. So if I want to change lanes, I just give it half throttle. The ZF8 speed does its job of changing gears nice and quickly, and you can nip from 50 to 70 miles an hour surprisingly fast actually. And the remap, it just gives it a little bit more get up and go. In terms of quality, Range Rovers are actually really well built. They're not particularly reliable in terms of their electronics. I know we've certainly had a few problems in that respect, but they're actually bolted together really, really well. They feel really solid. There's no interior rattles. This one's been looked after really well as well, so yeah, I mean, it's just well built. It feels like you're driving a tank. It's just a shame they're just not more reliable, because then they would be fantastic cars. Then in terms of wear and tear, this car is 6 years old, but as I already said, it's been well looked after, so even things like the seat bolsters haven't worn that much. And because you've got a basically brand new steering wheel, you can't really see any wear there either. So it looks like, you know, a car that's done about 5,000 miles in reality. But this is nearing 60,000 miles. It looks pretty good for its age, I think. Then moving on to cost options, if this was my car and I had three choices, what would I pick? Well, the first thing is going to be that panoramic roof. Because it's a big car, you need as much light as possible, especially for rear passengers. And this panoramic roof really does the trick. It is absolutely huge. It doesn't open up, but it just allows a lot more light into the cabin, and it totally changes how the car feels inside. Without it, it does feel pretty dark and gloomy in here. The next thing is going to be the tippy top of the range Meridian sound system. This is the bog standard one, and it's pretty mushy, to be honest. And when you're spending a lot of money on a car, you really do want a sound system that sounds good. And unfortunately, this one just doesn't really. The middle of the range system is fine, but if you go for the full top of the range 825 watt Meridian system, I mean, that is in a totally different league. Purely because the middle of the range system, I think that's 380 watts, so you get more than double the wattage Plus, you get really good clarity from the speakers even when you turn it up. Whereas this, when you turn it up, yes, it gets loud, but it just sounds a bit mushy, and it's just not good enough really. So yeah, get the top of the range Meridian system. It's well worth the extra money. And the last thing is just going to be the driver assistance package. I really like cars that just take the stress out of driving. And this Range Rover is so close to being perfect. Adaptive cruise control and lane assist would make this probably one of the best cars to have for motorway journeys out there at the minute. Right, we've got a couple more miles on the motorway. Let's squeeze every ounce of economy we can out of this thing. Currently sitting at 41 mpg, which is already higher than I thought it was going to get. So yeah, pretty happy so far. It says online on the extra urban cycle it'll do 47. If we can hit that figure, I will be amazed. Anyway, let's see if we can. Well, unfortunately, we hit quite a bit of traffic, but we still managed 43.6 miles per gallon. And I know online it says this thing will do 47 on the extra urban cycle, but I thought there was no way this thing was going to do even 40. Really, like genuinely really surprised. So on a long journey, I mean, yeah, it's an efficient car. An over 2-ton Range Rover that's almost shaped like a brick is efficient. I never thought I'd see the day. Anyway, let's destroy that figure now and see if this engine map can help put a smile on my face. Right, let's see what this Range Rover can do. I've got brand new Pirelli tyres on here, so I don't really want to push it too much. Whoops, there goes the draggy. But as you can see, it kind of holds on well, doesn't it? Coming out of corners especially, that low-down torque really pushes you around the corner. It's obviously no sports car, but yeah, it handles well. We've got big 6-piston Brembo brakes on the front of this thing as well, so it does stop well. It's one thing you definitely want on a big car like this is good brakes. There's a bit of a disconnect in the steering, but it gets the job done. It's like playing a computer game, really. But there's not too much body roll, and yeah, it's just a nice, easy car to get a move on in. It's actually a pretty quick thing when you consider it's pretty heavy. It's not bad, really. It's sort of like Stage 1 Fiesta ST fast. One thing I do like is the shape of the steering wheel as well. It gives you plenty of grip. It just feels nice in your hands, especially with this Alcantara wrap. Thing is, it's not really set up for understeer this either. It kind of, it's weird, it kind of understeers a little bit, but the quicker you go, the more the rear goes at the same time. It's hard to describe. If you're going, well, basically, if you're going slowly, it'll understeer first, but if you're going, say, 70 round a corner and you start sliding, the front and the rear go at the same time. Quite a weird experience in something this big, but it's easy to handle, really. You do notice that the Range Rover SVR was definitely a bit sharper though, and I mean you would expect that being the SVR version. Then down a B road, these things are actually not too bad, because you've got that extra suspension travel. It means you can push the car quite hard even over bumpy roads like this. The only downside to a car like this is just its size, really. You don't have a lot of options when it comes to moving about in your lane. But over bigger bumps like this, it controls its body really well. And you can certainly get a move on down here. Coming out of corners like this, you just plant your foot and it moves. Is it fun though? Not really. It's nice. It's very nice to drive, but no, it's not fun. Smooth, luxurious, and just downright nice to drive is how I'd describe the Range Rover Sport. Strange really, you expect it to wallow about in the bends, but in reality it's predictable and surprisingly capable on the road as well as off it. I've said this before, but I'll say it again, there really is just nothing quite like a Range Rover. Just make sure you set some money aside for repairs. As always, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, give it a like and why not subscribe? As not only can you see more content like this, you can see everything we have for sale, which includes this rather unique Range Rover. My name's Tom, and you've been watching Paragon Cars. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.